I'm so glad you're with us here on the Clark Howard Show. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. And in today's episode, I got to do something that has been bugging me for a while. You know, we track every person who contacts us at our Team Clark Consumer Action Center. That's our free one-on-one advice service. And there is a trend that is clear beyond measure. And that is the number one thing we're hearing about from people is problems with used cars. And used cars would always be in our top 10 or top 15 things we'd hear from people about. And we have a database where we can see the trends month by month, year by year, what's going on. And something that emerged in the run-up of used car prices in 21 till this moment, even though used car prices peaked in early 23 and have now fallen somewhere more than 27% since then, the damage was already done. And so month after month after month, the number one thing we're hearing from people is about nightmares with a used car that they purchased. And when I say car, I mean any kind of pickup truck, SUV, whatever. And this is a terrible, terrible problem. And the good news is that the supply of used cars has gone up a lot. And the ability for you to find a reliable used car you can afford has gotten steadily better over the last year. But the problems are already there. And people are in a really hard spot because the marketplace pushed the prices with the shortages of new cars. A lot of people were pushed to the used vehicle lot, and the prices of those escalated so dramatically. And so people were forced to buy older models than they intended, more miles on them than they intended, and they were desperate to get those vehicles. And in the best of times, it's a tiny fraction of people who have a used vehicle they're buying checked out by a mechanic. And so this was a terrible combination. Older models, more miles on them, and not having them checked out because you needed wheels and you needed them then. And now, the rest of it is really ugly with the high monthly payment and all of that. And people now are upside down in their used cars because if they bought them when prices were much higher, the vehicle's now older, and the value of used cars, with the prices coming down, the value of what yours is worth is really bad. So people are in the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario right now. So we do what we can when people present us with their scenarios to give you guidance as best you can to tough your way through the situation. So this is really for you if you are looking to buy a used car, or you're going to sometime this year, next year, to really think through methodically the process. Because I want the complaints about used car purchases to move down the list. I don't want every single month to see the report and see that as the number one area people are contacting us about. Because it's a terrible problem with the second largest expense people have in their lives. So when you're looking at buying a used car, there's something that almost nobody does, even less people do it than are buying new vehicles. And that is arrange your financing in advance. Arrange it in advance. There's an ad running heavy rotation right now from one of the few national chains of used car sellers. And the whole ad is about how we're going to get you financed, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that for you, and all that. We're going to show you what cars you can get, blah, 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 or SUVs, whatever. And that's where the money is for them, is writing the paper, writing that loan. And depending on the dealer, either keeping that loan in-house or getting a commission for selling it off, plus the markups. Do you know about the markups? This is ugly. Dealer will wholesale the financing at X percentage rate, and then they'll retail it to you at a much, much higher rate. They'll even psych you out about your credit to be able to run up that rate even higher. So that's why the first thing you do, and this is new or used, but it's become even more stark in the used vehicle market, arrange your financing in advance. And if you haven't joined a credit union yet for a new or used car purchase, do it. Because the financing at a credit union, day in and day out, not every day, but almost always, will be many interest points cheaper for that loan than it would be if you went to a bank, and especially going to a dealer. And that's just the way it is. And if you pre-qualify for the financing, you then have a much better feel what kind of monthly payment you're going to have and what kind of price point vehicle you should be looking at. And don't pay any attention ever, not ever, to what the dealer is posting as the price on that vehicle. They make that number up, and they mark it up above what they know they've got to get out of that vehicle, because a certain number of buyers are going to come in, they're going to think, oh, that's the price. You do the research. It's so easy online for you to research fair market value for the make, model, year, and miles on that vehicle to figure out what is a good price on it, a fair price. Because if you just go by the marker price the dealer has put on it, you're going to overpay by thousands. The dealer will also push you to buy some piece of trash third-party warranty. And they are not worth the paper they're written on. Do not fall for it. Instead, what you do, you check the VIN on any vehicle you're thinking of buying. And if it's got bad history, you're done. If it doesn't show a bad history, then you want to make sure that part of the purchase, you have that vehicle checked out by a mechanic you're choosing, because you're going to be stuck with it. If you buy from CarMax or Carvana, you don't inspect it in advance, you buy it, and then you have the period of time, depending 7 or 30 days, to return it for a full refund. Full refund if the vehicle doesn't check out with the mechanic. I've got a lot more clear steps that you go, one step, second step, third step, fourth step, fifth step, in our revised used car buying guide at Clark.com. With cars, used cars, it's much easier to get into trouble than it is to get out. I want to keep you out of trouble. And my goal is that we get to a point where problems with used car purchases moves back into the second 10 instead of number 1 as it is month after month right now. Christa?
Okay, Brian.
Can you hear the frustration in me about it?
I know. And we're not, and of course, like, please don't write to us. Like, we know there are lots of very honest, good car dealers out there. And I have a personal friend who's a great used car dealer. So Brian in New Jersey says, I have heard quite a bit about voice replication recently, and I contacted Vanguard about the security of their voice passwords. I was assured that they have top-notch security and that I don't have anything to worry about. Should I be worried about someone gaining access to my account?
So that phrase that you're asked to say. Anyway, yes, it can now be duplicated. And it's one of the main blocks in protecting your identity with a financial house. And the real risk here is with the financial houses, because I think it's 92% of Americans' money is now with financial houses, not with banks or credit unions. So banks and credit unions, if there is a hack of your account, have to restore your funds. In the financial industry, there is no law requiring that. So it's up to each financial house what they do. And you mentioned Vanguard. I went and read recently after another question from a listener or viewer to this podcast. I went and read Vanguard's policy on what they do if money is swiped from your account. And it is not like Schwab, where it's like, hey, somebody gets into your account, you have our full guarantee we're going to have the money. Vanguard says we will restore your funds if, and there are things specifically you can't do and have to do in order to have your funds safe. If you go read the Vanguard policy on what happens if your account is attacked by a hacker, somebody tries to steal your money, it's all based on, in their world, if you accidentally got conned and gave information to a crook, then Vanguard seems to look the other way and say, oh, well. On the other hand, if somebody found their way into your money, you are generally protected. But go read the policy and see. And companies are going to have to come up with other ways to come up with personal verifications of us to deal with the risk, because, hey, you know, in the old days when banks mattered, what did Jesse James say? He robbed banks because that's where the money was. Wasn't that the phrase or something like that?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, today,
sounds right.
if there was a modern Jesse James, he's going after the brokerage accounts and mutual fund companies and discount houses because that's where the money is.
Jackie in Georgia says, I purchased an Apple Series 9 watch in November of 2023. I got in the pool in July, and my watch began repeatedly calling 911. What a nightmare. I had to turn the watch off in order to stop it from dialing 911. Apple provides a 90-day warranty. What can I do to get another watch without purchasing another one? This watch does have swim functions installed. Help.
So, Jackie, this has been a problem for Apple ever since they came up with what is a wonderful function that if somebody falls hard or whatever and they can't reach you, it does the 911 thing. My Samsung watch mimics that. And I forget what I was doing. I was doing something with my older grandson, and it immediately popped up an alert. I don't know if we were throwing a ball or what we were doing.
Aww.
And it wanted to know if I was in danger. And different than you swimming, you're busy swimming. You probably wouldn't even notice that thing. Do you have a problem? Not? Should we contact 911? And of course, I said no. And thank goodness no 911 call was generated. Make an appointment, go into an Apple store, and let one of the geniuses go to work on your watch. This is something that Apple has got to make sure that the 911 function is credible, or what will happen is that a call coming in from an Apple Watch will no longer be given any priority by 911 centers. And so I think you will find help if you make an appointment and sit down with one of the geniuses. And I expect to hear back from you that they did what I said, because this has been a marketing ploy for them offering this. But if it loses all credibility and it doesn't actually benefit people by having the 911 dispatch, then it becomes useless to you and, of course, to Apple.
Carol in Georgia says, I want to send $500 to one of my sons. What is the quickest and safest way to do this? I used to use Venmo, but that has been discouraged, so I'd appreciate your help.
So to send money to a friend or family member, to send it to one of your sons, Venmo's just fine. Cash App's fine. PayPal's fine. I don't have any issue with you sending. This works really well as a way to send money. Are there any others that you can think of that make it really easy to send money to a kid?
Yeah, I use Venmo all the time. I do. But again, separate bank account for
Yeah,
it.
so that is what my wife has, a separate bank, well, actually it's a credit union account that she has money in to pay Venmo, and it's worked absolutely fine, and we've not had any problems. She uses it for Venmo and PayPal.
The other thing I do, and this is more complicated, but my son has a USAA account. I do as well. So I will transfer money into my USAA account sometimes and then transfer into his, since it was like a minor account setup. I have direct access to do that to him, but he can't take money from me. So I use that too.
So, Christa, which branch of the military were you in? And thank you.
My father was in the U.S. Army.
That's right. That's
Sarge Smarge.
That's how so many Americans have the opportunity to be with USAA. So,
and my cousin who listens to the show was a U.S. Marine. I mean, once a Marine, always a Marine, right?
That's right. Yeah, you're not.
Thank you for your service,
not
Michael.
An ex-Marine. Yeah, and he's a tough guy.
He's awesome.
And a nice guy, too.
He's the best, yeah.
Yeah. So coming up ahead, we're going to talk about something that is not so nice. There are lawsuits alleging that landlords are engaging in price fixing, sharing with each other behind your and my backs to push up rents. I want to tell you how the game is played, what's going on, and what you need to know when you're shopping around for an affordable place to live. 2 years ago, I mentioned a ProPublica study that had alleged that big apartment landlord companies, the big publicly traded and private equity ones, were engaging in collusion and price fixing. And those were just allegations that, but the way ProPublica writes things, they just say, well, this is going on, that's going on. They don't then make the if then. But now lawsuits are alleging that what ProPublica first brought to light 2 years ago is absolutely going on. That these big commercially traded and privately held apartment chains are sharing your apartment rent with each other as a way of colluding to push up rents. Now, these lawsuits will go on for years, and it will ultimately play through the courts, and we'll see how it works. And what will likely happen, a lot of these apartment outfits will reach a settlement where they neither accept or deny that this is going on. What is that they say? Something like that. And they will pay lawyers' fees, and tenants will get 12 cents each or whatever. The important thing is that you understand that apartment owners are sharing rent data through third-party databases. So they're not sharing, Clark's apartment chain sharing with Christa's apartment chain. They're going to a third-party servicer, almost kind of like a credit bureau for rent, but not checking credit, just seeing what rents are. And then they're using it as a way to say, oh, well, we're idiots if we offer that low rent because look what the other one's charging. And so the effect in the marketplace is higher rent in the immediate vicinity. So I've always talked about the importance of shopping for apartments. And you just need to know that this potentially, it is going on, that the information is being shared. And the potential effect is that landlords are quoting higher retail rents. That's the significant thing. Because if let's say you're in an apartment and they send you a notice that they're going to charge whatever, your renewal. About 6 weeks out, or it could be more depending on what advance notice you have to give your landlord you're not renewing, you want to go out and shop. And here's what happens. a landlord will say, when they know you're in play, that you're staying somewhere else, you're thinking of moving, they'll say, well, our retail on this apartment or that apartment or the other one is this, but we'll offer you this other deal. The more you put yourself in play, the lower the offers you're going to get. And they're pretty interesting how significant the discounts are if you're playing hard to get. Now, some of the bigger apartment complexes are using straight-out yield management software. And I haven't explained this in, probably a few years how it works with apartments. But let's say they find that one bedroom facing the east is hard for them to rent, but a one bedroom facing the west is much easier for them to rent. Even though the apartment may have the identical floor plan, there will be big differences in rent. This first came on my radar 5 years ago with my middle child, where she was able to rent a 2-bedroom apartment with a lousy view for less per month than what a studio was renting for in the same building with a good view. I mean, having the view of the pool suddenly made the rent so much higher. So in apartment complexes, don't be fixated, I want a 1-bedroom, I want a 2-bedroom, I want a studio, whatever. You're in play at each apartment complex, as long as it's the minimum square footage and what you need. And then you play one apartment complex against another. And let's say there's one you really like. Wow, that was great. I really like that. Don't be too eager. Play hard to get. You call that rental agent and you say, I really like your place, but I was offered this over here and this other over there. What can you do for me? And all of a sudden, you may find that another month or two of free rent against a lease materializes. Also, I've talked in the past about you shop in your immediate living zone. If you're willing to go farther afield, you may find, because of this collusion going on with the apartment owners, alleged collusion, that going a little further afield from your immediate area where you live now, if there's other neighborhoods nearby but not adjacent that you'd be interested in living, you may find that another area may have meaningfully lower rents because apartment rentals have been softer in that area, like a zip code away or whatever. So the more you're willing to do the legwork, the better your lease is going to be going forward, collusion or not.
Okay, we'll go to questions now. This one came in from Ryan in Indiana. Clark, for new homeowners, I wanted everyone to be aware of a scam from, they name a sort of generic property company. They sent me a bill for $129.95. It looks really legit, but I'm sure it's someone just trying to scam money. I just wanted to make sure you and your listeners were aware. I'm a loyal podcast listener.
So I've just Googled that. Google's not all definitive. Mm-hmm. There is no organization that comes up with a name like that.
And I remember when I bought my house, you get so many solicitations in the mail, so much for all sorts of things. So much
junk. And one of the principal things is something I talked about the other day, what's called croak and choke insurance, where they try to sell you complete garbage, mortgage, life, and disability insurance, or mortgage, life only insurance. It's terrible, terrible stuff. It's just one of the solicitations, just one of the ones.
Yeah, things to lock your title, all sorts of stuff.
All kinds of things that people will be trying to pick your wallet.
Donna in Florida says, we are looking at booking a tour with Kensington Tours. Do you know anything about them? Would you recommend moving forward or using another company? And if so, who?
So Kensington is a well-respected tour operator. Their tour operators vary a lot in quality. And now that I've said that, we'll hear from somebody, well, I got to tell you, it happened to me on a Kensington tour. But anyway.
I did look through reviews when I saw this question, and they do have some bad ones, but most are pretty good.
They tour operators generally don't have good reputations. This one has a much better reputation than most. Having said that, tour operators by their nature, even if they've been in business a long, long time, are unstable financially because they live on advanced deposits. And if they ever hit a rough patch, we've had tour operators who've been around 40, 50 years with great reputations that just, bam, cease to exist. So as far as a tour operator, they are one that has generally a very good reputation. But your money you must protect. If you pay advanced deposits by credit card, know that your rights only stay in place so long at a max that you can really sleep well at night. 60 days from when you pay money is your best protection for failure to deliver goods and services. Because that's the big risk, is that a tour operator runs out of gas and your money is gone. So that's why if you buy a trip insurance policy, you do not buy it from a tour operator. And when you buy a trip insurance policy, you need to make sure it includes in its coverages supplier default, supplier bankruptcy, supplier ceases to do business. Because one of the changes with trip insurance is a lot of the policies now no longer cover supplier default. If you have a premium travel credit card, the one that tends to have the best protections for buying travel is the Chase Sapphire Reserve. But again, it's not ironclad. They will refund you money up to, it's a lot, it may be $20,000 or something like that. And the coverages are pretty comprehensive. But again, you'd want to see with one of the premium credit cards, do they cover supplier default, or is it just other things they cover?
Jim in Virginia says, I've got a 6-month emergency fund in place in a high-yield savings account. I've been keeping $2,000 worth of my HSA money in cash. The rest is invested for long-term growth. Should I invest all of the HSA money?
Yes. You know, in your case, you are using an HSA as a phenomenal financial planning tool. You live on less than what you make. You have a massive emergency fund. And the HSA, obviously your intention is to just let it grow. It's pre-tax money that grows tax-free through the years that you then spend tax-free, hopefully much later in life and not for current medical expenses. Having that fully invested is a great, great choice. Only someone who has to have access to the HSA money for current medical bills would want to have a portion of their HSA in cash equivalents, like a savings account kind of vehicle or something like that. In your case, with this huge emergency fund, you want to go all in invested in your HSA or health savings account. And so many people who have access to a health savings account do not fund it. And this is the lowest hanging of all fruit of saving money, multiple advantages for your future, better than the Roth IRA. I'm the man from Roth, and I'm telling you, it is better than a Roth IRA or Roth 401k putting money in that HSA and leaving it alone, investing it. So thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. And when you need information day after day, I'd love for you, if you enjoy it, to listen to our podcast. And Christa, there are so many ways to subscribe to our podcast.
Subscribe or follow it, depending on where you listen. Share it, please, with friends. It really helps us.
So if you go to clark.com/podcast, you see all the different ways you can subscribe?
You do. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel. And it's youtube.com/Clark if you're trying to get to the YouTube channel and see everything we have to offer there.
And our followers of the people listening to our podcast keeps going up and up. Our YouTube subscribers are going up like a rocket. So it's because they want to see you, right, Christa?
Oh, no. But if we paid to do it, we don't pay any money to get subscribers. So it's organic. So it's nice and steady, which is great. And we appreciate everyone who watches or listens for sure.
So I've been asked, why don't we pay like other organizations do to basically buy subscribers? And that's not my thing. I want to provide content, as you called it, organic, that you find valuable, that you want to use, and you talk about it to a friend or family member, and they may sample it and say, hey, this is cool, I really like this, or they may say, oh, that guy's boring, not do it. But the point is, this is about creating a genuine connection, and I've been privileged over my years in all broadcast media to have that connection with people, with you, and I'm grateful for it and to you. So if you've just happened upon us and you think this is worthwhile, then go ahead and subscribe. And you got us most weeks 5 days a week. And the cost of watching us or listening is huge, right?
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Yeah, it's free. It's priceless, too. So have a great day. Remember what we're devoted to here with our websites, our social media, our newsletters, what I do on radio and TV. It's all about you learning ways to save more, spend less, and avoid getting ripped off. We'll see you tomorrow.